I don't do it. Yeah. I got a hold of it for you this evening. Oh, I just made my request. Don't worry about that. I'm taking care of it. You okay? You're still on the plate, right? Because I'm pushing everything till after you leave. Could I ask the members, please, to return and take your seats? I'd like to reconvene the meeting at this time. Pardon? So we can't take a vote without a quorum. Okay, committees now reconvene. And members, I'd been asked if we could make a very slight change to the order in which we take some of these, examine some of these votes for the Minister for District Administration, Tourism and Transport. We're going to leave DAT 14 for the time being so that we can take the votes and examine the appropriations for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman District Administration, simply because the members that are here from the Brac need to catch a flight back. So I'd like to take the time now and let's go ahead and examine those amounts. In the appropriation bill that you should have a copy of, they're found on page 12. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the executive assets, EA 55, EA 60, EA 95, EA 125, and EA 139. So what we'll do is just take these and deal with them, and once we get them approved, then once they're examined and approved, then we will go back. It's found on page 300 in the plan and estimates. Okay. Okay, let's move on then with EA 55, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman Roads. $1 million in 2018 and $1 million in 2019. Are there any questions? Member for East End.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think the minister needs to explain to us this $1 million per year, which requires the water working between 2016 and 2025, and the chip and spray of Little Cayman roads, when earlier we heard that the machine is going down there to, the equipment is going down there to pave the entire Little Cayman roads.
Can you state a positive question, member from East End?
I asked for him to explain this entire thing, the whole process, when we know chip and spray is only 3 to 5 years. And earlier he indicated that the equipment, the paving equipment, the asphaltic paving equipment will be going to Little Cayman to pave with asphalt, that is. Paving is asphalt, chip and spray is chip and spray. And chip and spray is only 3 to 5 years. Why or when is the paving going there then?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank the member for that question. The road program in Cayman Brac has been ongoing. It is an asphalt program. The program is designed, as he has outlined, that once it's finished in Cayman Brac, the equipment would be moved to Little Cayman to asphalt those roads because of the longevity of the roads and the value per dollar. This year, the program is on Cayman Brac. It continues. Right now, they're working on the Central Bluff Road going east to the lighthouse, and then they continue on secondary roads after that. Is it an estimated time of when you believe that will be completed to move to Little Cayman? Is that part of the question?
Nobody should be part of your answer. That's what I'm trying to determine. If you're going to chip this road surface in Little Cayman, all of it, under this $1 million, I see he's shaking his head, but this says, in addition, all Little Cayman roads will require resurfacing with chip and spray, as this temporary service only lasts 3 to 5 years. So I take that to mean, the narrative may be wrong, but I take that to mean that they have currently expired that 3 to 5 years, and now this $1 million is going to do it.
The $1 million is Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. It's used for the asphalt.
So, Mr. Chairman, can the minister explain that whole narrative then? Road repair in Cayman Brac due to water authority installing pipelines for a set of water between 2016 and 25. Secondary residential roads will continue to be paved through to December 2020. In addition, the Little Cayman roads, as I understand that, is not as a result of water being installed. So it must be that they have now expired the 3 to 5 years, the life of the chip and spray that is there, and we're going to go over it. That's how I'm understanding that. If not, then tell me.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the Little Cayman Road Program, some of Little Cayman has been chip and sprayed, and some of Little Cayman has not been chip and sprayed. So the program for this year would be partial new roads of chip and spray, and then the reconditioning and repair of the road system that is there now that needs to be repaired. Little Cayman. And then you are correct about the Cayman Brac portion of it being continuation of the asphalt program and then going back over where the water authority has put pipe in.
I hope that's just patching the roads. I hope it's better than some that we have had here, done here. But so what's the timeline for paving Little Cayman then?
through you, Mr. Chairman, the road program has a crew that when they are working in Cayman Brac, they're not working in Little Cayman, okay? So it's moving them back and forth to satisfy both programs.
I don't think, maybe you didn't receive right what I was trying to achieve here. You said that the paving equipment, not chip and spray now, paving, two distinct different things altogether for road base. Would be moving to Little Cayman. In the interim, you're chipping and spraying it. The new roads and the repairs that is required. I am trying to determine the timelines for paving of Little Cayman roads.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we're dealing with the 2018 budget and the 2019 budget. The paving in Cayman Brac will not be completed in this budget to move the equipment from Cayman Brac to Little Cayman. So it will continue to need to be the repair work on chip and spray. Well, demand dictates what equipment you have there.
Mr. Chairman, all I'm trying to do is to find out when they're going to pave Little Cayman roads. Because that then decides when Grand Cayman roads get paved by NRA when the equipment comes back to Cayman, which is for a different ministry altogether.
But I think what he said too, remember, is that it won't happen in 2018 and 19, and it doesn't have a definite date. But it won't happen for sure in 2018 or 19. I think that's what the member has said.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that, sir, and I appreciate that. But I'm trying to determine when it will happen, the timelines. And no one seems to have a plan in place as to when Cayman Brac is going to be finished and when it moves to Cayman Brac.
Mr. Chairman, let me see if I can help with this. As the minister responsible for district administration in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, it would not be my input or my intention to send that paving equipment back to Grand Cayman in the near future, because there is still plenty work to be done in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Whatever, I have no responsibility for NRA under my ministry. That will have to be something dealt with by the minister responsible, and we will certainly support that minister in what he decides to do from a policy standpoint and from cabinet.
That is statement. Not responsible for what happens at NRA, but responsible for taking the equipment and it Cayman Brac.
Of course.
Hang on now. That's what I did. And in the meantime, in Grand Cayman, you got paid through your nose to get paving done.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure how he gets here in the morning, whether he drives, flies, gets dropped off. There is a tremendous amount of road work going on in Grand Cayman right now. Don't begrudge the growth we're trying to create on Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Nobody's trying
work together on this.
Nobody is trying to stop the growth in Cayman Brac. Here the Premier, he come up with that now about that's what I'm doing. I am not. I am trying to determine when this equipment, if this equipment is going to be brought back, so that when at the time of the Minister for Government for NRA here, then I can find out what we are going to do to make NRA more efficient with the paving in Grand Cayman and do the same thing we're doing in Cayman Brac. Whether or not we wait for that equipment and continue to pay through our noses down here to get paving, or spend $1 million and get the equipment again.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will repeat, from the standpoint of the equipment that is in Cayman Brac, you should not count on that being returned to Grand Cayman in the very near future based on the outline of work that has been explained. I said 3 times.
Are there any other questions? Member for Cayman Brac West and Little Cayman.
East,
East, sorry.
although most of my family in West.
I'll
I
get
still
it.
support them and my supporters. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Honourable Minister, just to get a commitment again this year is to Antietam Road. I know we did some remedial work, but to get some indication that we could get that done within the next financial year, and also to consider widening and paving the Tatum Road in Spot Bay, because they're having difficulty, as the minister is aware, with ambulance and garbage trucks traversing and be able to get in and out safely there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the district commissioner is here. I'm just going to ask him to step down, and I'm obviously going to give that commitment as the minister, but I just want to make sure he's aware of the request, and he can also give us a timing on the Antietam. No. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
We're going to finish with
While he's coming, Mr. Chair, maybe I might just add a filler in here, because I think my chest will just bust if I don't say what I'm about to say. But when I was minister the last time, and this allegation keeps spewing out from various corners that we took the machinery from here to Cayman Brac, the situation was that at the time there was a policy decision, and I don't know who made it because I came and found it, that they did not want to compete with the private companies here that was providing the asphalt, and that there was a restructuring proposed for the NRA. So rather than lay off all of them in, we thought we would use them on the Brac, where we always had a tradition and a historic of not only doing roads, but it's a way of providing labor that's needed within the Brac constituency. Both my colleague and I came and found that situation. I believe that we'll leave and find it because of the demographics and the economic situation that is there. So it was not that we took it from Grand Cayman to do it. It was actually to make sure that employees then at NRA were employed within the jurisdiction, providing labor and well-needed roads, because the roads in Brac had not been asphalted in the past 40 years. That did not hinder the contracts that we put out here with Island Paving and others, and members would see, as my colleague said, that roads are continuing in Grand Cayman, albeit some through the NRA agreement with DART. And those roads that DART did were excellent roads.
Deputy Premier.
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't leave without responding too. I have nothing wrong. I have been saying for a very long time that equipment, whether if you're going to send it to Cayman Brac, make it be a temporary thing. That's what I said initially. I've been trying to find out when we're going to return it. I have no problem with it going to Cayman Brac. If we're not going to return it, that's fine. However, we need to be sure, because every time we ask about getting roads paved in Cayman, they say they got to wait on the private sector. There has always been a policy since my time that we were not going to compete with the making of the asphalt, but we were going to lay our own because of the delays that we had. Thus, the Premier was minister, went with me. We agreed on buying the equipment for laying the pavement, not for, and we refused to compete against people who were making asphalt. Now, and we bought from them, and at one time there were 2. In Cayman Brac, they had to go and buy a plant to be able to do it, which you can understand, because it's isolated. We couldn't take the plant there too from the private sector, but government does not have a plant in Cayman to make asphalt. We, in the interest of efficiency, you see how long it's taken to get that little piece up there paved? That was why the paving equipment was bought. And it was just around $1 million for the trucks and the equipment and the legs. That is what we need to get back to. Because when the private sector in those days were paving for us, it was over $150 a ton. When I went in there, it came down to like $90-some a ton. That is the efficiency that we can get out of having our own paving equipment here. And it is my submission that we need to get back to that. Leave that in Cayman Brac, but nobody makes an excuse that the reason we can't get our roads paved in Cayman because we're waiting on private sector. That's the problem.
Mr. Chairman, I have the district commissioner here, and he's going to respond to the honorable minister for the question she had.
Ernest Scott, District Commissioner for the Sister Islands. Mr. Chairman, through you, the road program, the road works in the Brac right now. We're extending the road to the lighthouse. That's the paving that's going on currently. It's been a bit of a challenge for us, and it hasn't advanced as quickly as we had hoped because we had some technical difficulties with the plant and the equipment. But we've got it up and running again, to the best of my knowledge, fingers crossed. And paving should be actually going on there today. We're hoping to get that finished over the next few weeks. That's probably going to bleed over into the beginning of the new year. Once that's finished, then we're going to move down and pick back up where we actually started with the secondary roads in Spot Bay, coming west. The Antietam Road, that was a question, is definitely one of those roads that we're going to go back to. And yes, the plan is there to widen it to accommodate the bigger vehicles. So that's a part of the next, and we'll continue those secondary roads, working our way west. The Antietam Road that the Honorable Minister asked about, she probably knows, but I'll just run through it quickly. The reason why that has not been paved yet is because of the hills and valleys that nature gave us there on that particular piece of road. And rather than pave it with the existing hills and valleys, we said we were going to wait until we could knock some of those hills off and build some of the valleys up and get it a little more level. And we're planning on doing that very shortly as well. It definitely will be happening during the next budget year for sure. And so that's where we'll move to after the paving of the secondary roads. And yeah, we do have, I heard it mentioned earlier, we do have the ongoing road repair work as a result of the trenching by the Water Authority to lay the, as we refer to it over there, the city water pipelines. So that's ongoing as well.
There are no other questions. All those in favor of EA 55, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman Roads for $1 million in 2018 and $1 million in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. EA 60, Cayman Brac Bluff Play Field, $600,000 in 2018. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, no questions, but just to say that the Honourable Minister and I are sharing this responsibility, and I take note that 2019 there is zero entrance, at which time I believe it should be transferred over to the Minister responsible, but because their infrastructure has already started, it's still underneath the Minister of Tourism.
I put the question, all those in favor of EA 60, Cayman Brac Bluff Playfield, $600,000 in 2018 and $0 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. EA 95, Cemetery Vaults, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, for $25,000 in 2018 and $25,000 in 2019. Are there any questions? All those in favor of EA 95, Cemetery Vaults, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, for $25,000 in 2018 and $25,000 in 2019. Outstanding part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. EA 139, Little Cayman Boat Launch Ramp, $50,000 in 2018 and $150,000 in 2019. Are there any questions? Oh, my apologies. My apologies. Let's go back. I omitted EA 25. EA 125, Cayman Brac Emergency Shelter, for $2,100,000 in 2018 and $0 in 2019. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question, but like to record the same comment as I did with the Bluff Play Field. And if maybe the minister could take an opportunity just to explain to the committee some of what we plan to do in this year with the emergency shelter.
Jonathan Jackson, Deputy Chief Officer, Ministry of Tourism. Mr. Chair, through you, the Cayman Brac Emergency Shelter, which we term now as the Brac Multipurpose Hall, commenced mobilization on the 6th of November, which was this week. And the physical construction start is on the 27th of November. And it's to complete the interior finishes and the MEP contract fit out for completion next summer, 2018.
Okay. Any other questions? Member for for Newlands.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just my usual plea. Nothing against Cayman Brac getting money for their shelters, but Bordentown has no real provision for shelters. We need the shelter. Last Finance Committee, I made the same appeal. I was told that we were going to get something done with the incomplete shelter, the church hall there in Bordentown. I don't think anything has been done. We don't have capacity. We don't have shelters that can withstand anything beyond Category 3. We have a huge population, and simple fact of the matter, we need the shelters.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, it is not quite correct to say there are no shelter facilities for Bordentown. I have taken 10 years of blows for the expense of the Clifton Hunter facility, which has increased shelter capacity for the eastern districts by 1,000 persons. But I take the member from Newlands' point that that is insufficient, and that is why government is currently discussing the possibility of assisting with the completion of the Church of God Church Hall in Lower Bordentown. On the basis, we haven't actually signed an MOU yet, but on the basis that government would be entitled to the use of the facility in particular circumstances, because we can't get to a position where none of us are going to live forever. and management changes, and all of a sudden there's a decision taken that government can't use the facility anymore. So it will have to be along those lines. I am currently having a draft MOU developed, which I then need to discuss with my caucus and my cabinet. And on that basis, I believe we'll be able to proceed to assist, I underline that word, with the completion of the facility there. Obviously, government will have to evaluate how much we should invest in a facility which would have, we hope, very limited use for government. But all of those things are yet to be discussed. But the government is moving in that direction.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just want to state that over the past few weeks, Premier and I have been having discussions about the shelter situation in Bordentown, and have discussed the same facility being mentioned on the floor. And I want to say that I support this move, and it's something that we're aggressively going at, knowing the tender situation. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions. All those in favor of EA 125, Cayman Brac Emergency Shelter for $2,100,000 in 2018 and $0 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. EA 139, Little Cayman Boat Launch Ramp, $50,000 in 2018 and $150,000 in 2019. Are there any questions? Member for Northside.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Minister. Can we have some idea what this is? Because $200,000 for a launch ramp sounds like a lot. It must include some other facilities. So we need an explanation. I was just asking, Mr. Minister, what else is included in this Little Cayman boat launch ramp? Because $200,000 must include something more than just a ramp.
No, absolutely correct. Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the question to the member. The Little Cayman has two issues on the north coast. As you know, it's most of the access to the water and the reef enclosed area is on the south coast. So on the eastern end, in the Marys Bay area, it was two things, for safety of lives at sea and for the local person wanting to get out on a small boat and be able to come ashore without having to steam all the way around from South Hole. We started a boat launch with a dock next to it in the Marys Bay area, and the dock itself is being extended and the boat ramp is being improved. That's on the eastern district of Little Cayman. The second part of it is most of the diving, probably 75% of it is done on Bloody Bay Wall, which means that the dive boats come out of South Hole and steam around, anchor off, and there's no way, God forbid, that there's an emergency on one of the boats or a boat that is there fishing to get anybody ashore on the north side of Little Cayman. So the second part of it is we've entered into an agreement with a Caymanian McCoy family that has started a dock on the north side on the western end of Little Cayman, and stopped to partner with them and continue that jetty out to where there would be a safe way for boats to get an emergency ashore. So that's the spend there.
There are no questions. All those in favor of EA 139, EA 139, Little Cayman Boat Launch Ramp, $50,000 in 2018 and $150,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask your permission to release the District Commissioner, Mr. Ernie Scott, the Deputy District Commissioner, Mr. Mark Tibbetts, the Finance Administrator, Mr. Andrew Galbraith, who flew down from the Brac this morning, that they could go back to the airport now. And I'd also like to register my thanks for them coming down and the work they've done.
That's fine, sir, and thank you all for being here. Okay, members, we will now turn our attention where we left off previously, and we have to complete DAT 14, so we'll pick up with the questioning there. DAT 14, that's on page 11 of the appropriation bill. DAT 14, public transport services, $774,552.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair.
In 2018, and $791,199 in 2019. Are there any questions?
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me. Through you. I wonder if the Honourable Minister can speak to the conduct on our roadways of our public transport licensed drivers, including taxis and buses, who we know routinely breach the traffic laws. In the extreme instance, of course, we will recall the tragic circumstances that led to the death of a visiting doctor, but more so generally, very recently there was a Freedom of Information request that identified 427 complaints or citations against public transport licensed drivers through the 15th of August of this year. That's an average of 2 citations or 2 tickets per day, according to the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service. I wonder, through you, Mr. Chairman, if the Minister can advise these chambers what is being done to address these concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I thank the member for that question. I'm going to ask Mr. Dirk Banks, the Director of Transport, Public Transport Unit.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Dirk Banks, the Director of Public Transport. I want to thank the member for that question. There is several approach in relation to dealing with complaints. First of all, we want to talk about what was touched on with the Department of Tourism. We do first of all offer enhanced customer service training. If that fails, there is a infraction system. Persons who are found to be in breach are reported to the Public Transport Board, who reviews the matter and deals with it accordingly. They have several remits that they can do, from placing the person on probation, warning, suspension, or revocation.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, I thank the representative for that response. I wonder if he can state how many enforcement actions have been levied against public transport drivers in the last year.
Mr. Chairman, if memory serves me correctly, it's about 450.
Member, did you hear the response? Yes. Okay.
Mr.
Are there other questions?
Mr. Chair.
If I may.
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Mr. Chairman, this opens up a door now that causes me to pause. if the board is responsible and has the authority for revocation of license, how many have they revoked?
Mr. Chairman, through you, if memory serves me correctly, in the past year, there's only been 2 revocations.
2 out of over 400 infractions?
Right. Mr. Chairman, through you, yes, 2 revocations, as we spoke about. There is a progressive method in dealing with complaints. So revocation would be the final method of dealing with complaint.
Mr. Chairman, why is it that, how many of those 450 are repeats? Is, I think, the best question to ask first.
Mr. Chairman, I could not say how much was repeat. I know there are some, and it varies per various infractions, but I couldn't commit to say the number. I don't have that off the top of my head. I can commit to provide that, but I couldn't say at the moment.
Mr. Chairman, why I say that is because I don't know, and I know all members in here use the roads, and it's not me alone. I'm not the only person on the road. But certainly all of us have to see the number of infractions that are being committed on a daily basis by the public transport buses, taxis, and what tour buses. And I appreciate that there may be staff shortage for the amount of license permits that are issued. But we are running straight into catastrophes, motor vehicle catastrophes with these people. God forbid that we have a catastrophe, a motor vehicle accident that wipes out every passenger on those buses, on either one of them buses. Mr. Chairman, let me get into the eastern end of the island. A couple of years ago, we questioned that, and the same director, same said guy, said to us that there were supposed to be 120 buses there going to East End, north side. And that is, I think there were 20 or 25 registered permits, and they had to do 4 times per day within a 24 hours. So that's how those numbers came up, something like that. Mr. Chairman, things started going good, very good. All of a sudden, we see it slack off. Then we see one of his people, one of the staff members sitting down there counting the number of buses that go to East End and North Side. They continue to evade it because I call in on a number of times, sitting right in the middle of East End by the bar, and see them turn around. They don't go through North Side. They turn around by the bar. What kind of, getting back to this discipline, this infraction that the board can consider, when civilians call in and do these, to make these complaints, is there a process whereby that can be progressed up the ladder to the board?
Mr. Chairman, through you, what we'll find is that we do receive complaints, but there's insufficient evidence to progress it. Persons who normally refuse to provide the sufficient evidence to progress it to the board, and we are unable to complete that process without for lack of evidence in regards to the infraction. So that where you see we do have the infractions reported, but persons are reluctant in providing the necessary evidence.
Mr. Chairman, there's the real one. If such is the case, I trust that that one that went viral has been revoked. That's a question.
Mr. Chairman, it would not be appropriate to respond to that in that it is an ongoing legal issue and it may prejudice the outcome of the matter.
Mr. Chairman, but the board has the authority to revoke. Can someone tell me then what were the actions of the board?
Mr. Chairman, the matter has been dealt with by the board, and they may be pending appeals. I'm not at liberty to further deliberate on as to the outcome.
No, my friend. Mr. Chairman, let's get this straight, how the system works. I have to respect sub judice. Sub judice only happens when it's registered. If you do not have in your possession evidence that this has been recorded at the court, then you have to answer the questions.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question is, what was the outcome of the case that went viral? What was the decision of the board?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the current situation is that the board has suspended the person's public transport permit.
Mr. Chairman, for fear of getting too much into it, and I respect sub judice. I understand what it means, but I got to move away from that out of respect. But I got to take another issue that ties straight into that. Why is it that Caymanians who apply for public transport licenses are not getting them? Besides, they are being told that it has been refused and they can appeal, but there are no grounds as to how on which they must appeal, i.e., they're not told on what grounds it will refuse. Loaded.
Mr. Chairman, thank the member for the question. Ms. Rosa Harris, the chairman of the board, is here. We're going to ask her to respond. Could the member repeat the question again?
Mr. Chairman, the question is, why is it that young Caymanians who know the business applying for license, whether it's transport operator or whatever, being notified it was refused, it can be appealed, in the same letter notified that it can be appealed in accordance with so-and-so, section so-and-so. But there are no grounds of the refusal, therefore you can't appeal without appealing against something. And the lawyers can know the legal terms for that, but the fact is, if you don't know why it was refused, I'm sure you can't appeal it.
Yes. Okay.
Director, please proceed.
Rosa. Rosa Harris,
order.
Director of Tourism. To respond to the question regarding Caymanians, public transportation is a category within tourism that is protected for Caymanians. So the operator has to be Caymanian to be able to hold a taxi, tour, school, water sports, and I'm missing one more, permit. If they then choose, this particularly happens in the Omni and the tour category, if they choose to then hire a Caymanian or a non-Caymanian to drive their vehicle, then that is up to the Caymanian business owner. But the permit is awarded to a Caymanian. So to answer the question about opportunities for Caymanian, public transportation is very unique in that it is a protected class for Caymanians in principle. To move on to why are decisions being made that aren't explicit as to why an application was turned down. I believe I understand a specific case that the member is referring to, and having looked at the documentation, the board has gotten advice in the past with regard to its generation of minutes and letters. And I do know that we have changed the amount of information that is provided in our minutes specifically because a lot of the cases are individual based. So not to provide so much information on the specific cases, but to be more general, knowing that these minutes can end up in the public domain. And some of the cases get very, very specific and do have proprietary information that is shared with the board. So there has been a transition with specific response to not mentioning why a case was turned down. I don't believe that it was intentional. I do believe that it was an oversight because I'm aware of the specific case that the member may be referring to in terms of the documentation for which you're referring to. So in order to address the minutes and also the letters that are dispersed, as the chairman of public transportation, I've made a note to be able to make that change. So I do know that there's some letters that have been released that weren't specific and provided reasons as to why candidate may have been turned down. So I acknowledge that, sir.
Mr. Chairman, okay, maybe the director knows of this specific case, but that same young gentleman had to apply about 5 times to get an operator's license. And he had an operator's license with a big transporter, I think we call them. And then when he goes to get his own, without any backing from them, he's turned down. He then tries to get a tour operator license. And what bothers me is that this is the kind of letter that this kid receives. And I will not call the name. Subject, refusal of tour operator's permit. The Public Transport Board, PTB, reviewed your application for an operator's permit to conduct tour operation. On behalf of the PTB, I regret to advise you that your application for a tour operator's permit was refused on the line and highlighted without prejudice. I know that means it can apply again. The decision is in accordance with the traffic law. In view of the above, your attention is drawn to the Public Transport Appeals Tribunal Regulation 2012, Section 7.1a and 8.1 as stated below. 7.1a. A person aggrieved by or dissatisfied with the decision of the board may within A, 28 days of the communication of the decision to him, 8.1, appeals under the regulation 7 shall be in notice in writing addressed to the Secretary of the Appeals Tribunal, and such notice shall set forth the decision against which the appeal is made, the board reasons for its decision, the grounds of appeal, and whether or not the appellant wishes to be heard personally or by a representative, and B, shall be accompanied by a non-refundable processing fee of $250. Please address your appeal to the Secretary of the Appeals Tribunal, Minister of District Administration, Tourism and Transport, Post Office Box 109, Government Administration Building, Grand Cayman, KY1 9000. Sends all the lawyers in here. How much we got? 1, 2, 3. At least 4 lawyers in here right now. How you going to appeal that? Yeah. I mean, a layman such as myself, wouldn't know what to appeal. You appeal without prejudice? Without prejudice mean the same thing that the Premier just said, then he can apply again. He had applied 6 times before. You run them around circles. Meaning, if he don't want to appeal, go ahead and reapply. He did it 5 times before that. A young Caymanian who knows the business. Is this what we're doing? Then, Mr. Chairman, this needs to get out. Then, we see these multi-millionaire with their conglomerates bringing in what they call the buses, coaches, and picking everybody up off the dock for their pre-booked tours, while a young Caymanian with 3 children wants to do this part-time to supplement his income, raise his children. He can't have it. This needs to stop.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I've been waiting for a while because I haven't heard a question. I
didn't see. Was there a question in there? Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, sorry. And Mr. Premier, thank you.
But Mr.
What we need to know...
One second, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
As you pointed out, debate has finished. If the member doesn't have a question to ask, then he ought not to go on for 5 minutes with the debate.
Mr. Chairman, he want a question? Tell him take this one. It since that's what he wants. Well, we'll have to be here for a month because this country's the people. Oh, you got move a motion to shut it down. Please do. Anytime you're ready, Mr. Chairman. Oh, you dictating to old boy? You didn't know you and I came in here on equal ground? I ain't got dominated, but I am going to question you all about the policies of this country. No, I don't want to get out. You couldn't care less.
Member, could we?
I want to know.
Order? Could I ask you then?
I want to know why Caymanian kids are being turned down without any reason.
Okay.
Tell them answer that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's nobody in this chamber that wants to empower young Caymanians more than this minister responsible for this subject. And we show that every day with everything that we try to do, from the hospitality school to scholarships to mentoring to bringing them on board. The specific case that has been brought here has certainly pointed out an issue that needed to be brought to the forefront. The chairman is here, and I can tell you from knowledge of working with her for the last 4.5 years, she is totally committed to bringing Caymanians into this industry. She has explained to the member that there was an issue. She has explained that she was aware of it. She has explained the specific case that she thought it was, and that's what it is. We can move one step forward with a commitment that she will personally deal with it as quickly as possible, and to continue to review to make sure that other ones don't fall into this same situation. Now, because this is a letter back and forth, I would ask the member to allow me to have a private conversation just to explain a few things about the case.
Mr. Chairman, I will gladly do that, but like he says, this is not the only one. In the last 4 years, I've called you, Mr. Minister, I don't know, 10 times, and we resolve the crisis, and then it pops up again. And that's my greatest concern.
And my commitment to you through the chair is that I will answer the phone when you call, or I call you right back, and I try to do everything we can do to resolve these issues. And I can say again that we have a very supportive chairperson in the position here. So,
and Mr. Chairman, I will admit, he's the only one that calls me back pronto. I guess that's why I got no that friendship.
Member for Georgetown Central, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to I have about 3 questions in respect to this topic. I'll try to be as brief as possible. One, is there a legal obligation by the chairman to give reason in response to a refusal? Another comment is, unfortunately, I have a same particular matter before me this week with one of my constituents. I am hoping, for the sake of it being a mistake, it'll be the same person, because then if it's not, that means there's another person who has the same claim in respect to saying being refused without given reasons for. Third question, I'm just asking these so she can answer them all at one time, so rather than going back and forth. Is there a moratorium on giving out these licenses, or these permits, should I say? And last question, the purpose behind making these types of jobs Caymanian only, my thinking is to branded as Caymanian because in the tourism perspective, so persons who are exposed to these individuals will get a cultural feel from the individuals. I don't understand the logic that if we give a permit to somebody to operate, but then allow them to hire a non-Caymanian to drive the bus. It doesn't make the sense, because I think unless there was a different reasoning behind it, making it Caymanian only in the first place, because if I'm the Caymanian, you say from a tourism perspective, we want Caymanians to be the face of our tourism product, and then I go out and I hire a Filipino, then I defeat the purpose in the whole place. So I don't understand that logic. So maybe I can get an explanation in respect to that.
Deputy Premier.
Thank
There are
you.
about 3 or 4 questions here.
Let me see how I can. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I thank the member for the questions. Number one, there is no moratorium on the application for tour operator taxi. There is a request and a demand on the application for a business plan. And this is to manage demand and supply. Example being when the last large resort opened, all of the waiting applications for taxis were satisfied and everyone was given a license. Since then, based on demand and supply, when you see more demand, then you will get more supply. It's a balance that empowers the person to be successful. That's number one. The issue of problems with applications, problems with growth, these are things that are going to happen when your industry is growing. It is the responsibility of a member of a legislative assembly to deal and help their constituents. Again, the way the member from East End explained, I offer that same situation to the member from Georgetown Central. If there's an issue, call. We work through it together. We share as much information as we possibly can, and we try to get the best results for people. We want more people in the tourism industry. We want more people to take advantage of especially a growing cruise product that allows Caymanians with a lower threshold to get involved, taxis, tour operators, that type of thing. A taxi driver is a Caymanian. That is the law. The tour operator that is the Caymanian owner has a growth potential that demands the hiring of people to meet the demand. Is that? I think that was hopefully 4 out of 4.
Mr. Chair, I think he did answer my questions, and I think I had a little misunderstanding in respect to one issue, because I was actually talking about the example I gave was in respect to a person who wanted a bus license and a tour operator's license. I can understand the principles behind that, because you can have a lot of tour operators, and if there's not the demand, of course, then we have to fill it, even if it's with non-Caymanians. But I didn't hear the answer in respect to, is there a legal obligation by the chairman, to give reasons for refusal by the board?
I am informed that the answer is yes.
Thank you, sir. Member for Bodden Town West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just roughly, how many license or how many operators that we have licensed? What's the total number?
Taxi operators, 288.
Okay.
Tour operators, 117.
Okay.
Omnibuses, 75.
Okay.
Water sports, 16. Limousines, 7.
Okay, thanks. I noticed that based on the quantitative numbers that you guys have here, it says that there is roughly 500 to 800 permits and IDs to be issued for 2018 and also for 2019. Is that new or does that include renewals?
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. Dirk Banks, Public Transport. In relation to the question, currently there are approximately, with the approval of 14 new operators, there are approximately 815 persons employed in public transport. So there will be 815 public transport permits.
How many of those are individual Caymanians with multiple licenses?
From memory, if it serves me correctly, there are about there's close to 45.
And when you issue a license, do you evaluate both the person that you're licensing and the vehicle that's being licensed?
Mr. Chairman, through you, that is correct.
And if these multiple licenses, do you have to approve the person that they hire to drive for them or no?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the driver also has to obtain a public transport permit, which makes up the 815 licensed persons.
Member from Savannah.
You need to change it. One person, one license.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick query. When especially the public buses that travel on the, I must say, on the east part of the island, when they're given a license, are they given any instructions on the manner in which they drive? And I'll just give you an example which I deal with almost daily. If someone is going east and I go north side 5 times a week, those buses, if they're dropping off someone in those side roads, they will park, let the passenger off almost right in front of where you're coming out. You can't see this way or that way sometime. And if you could give them some guidance on the way that they put off passengers and stuff, I would certainly be grateful. Blocking, yes, that's the word.
Mr. Chairman, through you, we do offer in our orientation various advice. However, there is one issue which we have identified, that the roads that are being built, and we have spoken to the NRA, do not provide laybys for the buses to pull off. And you would see this even with the new construction. So they're committed to correcting that so that this issue would not continue.
Has the Transport Board, and I'm talking specifically about the omnibus right here, have they made any proposals to the government to create proper bus stops at certain frequencies on the routes?
Mr. Chairman, through you, we have met with the NRA and we're trying to identify where to put them. The challenge is that, as I pointed out earlier, there is, in the road construction, there's no laybys to actually put the bus stop. So it is a challenge as to where to put the actual bus stop or bus shelter for the bus to pull off.
Earlier on, in reply to a question, you said that one of your problems is evidence when people make complaints. Would a photograph of the van, the license plate, and people exiting it in the middle of the road be sufficient evidence for you to discipline them and revoke revoke the license?
Mr. Chairman, through you, that with a written statement would be suffice for it to proceed to the board, for the board to take action.
Can you give us an idea of what the sequence is? How many complaints are taken? Are there levels of severity of complaints that enter this ladder at different rungs, or does everybody start at the bottom regardless of how severe the infraction may be?
Mr.
In other
Chair,
words, I think it's a little bit different if a pastor is complaining because somebody's talking on the phone while they're driving, as opposed to somebody letting somebody out in the middle of the road with traffic flowing. And the reason they will not pull off the road in instances where space is available is because they don't want to get out of the spot they are in a traffic jam. So what I'm talking is there severity that does the infractions all start at level 1, regardless of the infraction? Or
Mr. Chairman, through you, no, it depends on the infraction, and each infraction is judged on its own merit, as previously asked by the previous member from East End, where that was the first incident, but the board suspended. So that would be an example of a more serious infraction.
do you have a matrix you could give us copies of?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you have a matrix that you could give us a copy of? This offense is this punishment. This offense is that punishment.
Mr. Chairman, as with the previous estate, it is based on the severity of the offense. So you may have different levels of the same offense, where someone who's pulled off the road as opposed to someone who's actually ran someone off the road, which is something different.
It's all arbitrary, and that's determined by you based on what you determine the complaint to be. There's no predetermined levels.
Mr. Chairman, through you, first of all criminal offenses are dealt with seriously, and they are
We're not talking about criminal offenses. We're talking about
progressed there. The traffic offenses varies with what type of traffic offenses and as well as customer service complaints.
Mr. Chair.
Would knocking the door off the bus and knocking the passenger down be severe? A good way to complain to you to get the license revoked?
Mr. Chairman, through you, I just want to remind the member that the police is actually responsible for the road safety, and there is a criminal court and summary court for traffic offenses. The Public Transport Unit and the Public Transport Board does view safety as a concern, and we'll deal with that. But the primary for road offenses shouldn't be
I'm talking
reported.
about road offenses. I'm talking about the license that you give. Do you request, do you submit the names of persons and the vehicle that they're licensed to drive to the courts or the police so that you can be notified of traffic offenses that they commit and are convicted of?
Mr. Chairman, through you, yes, we do.
Mr. Chair.
I'm going to allow one last question before I put the matter to a vote.
I'm not finished, sir, please.
Okay.
We have a car that parks at the Francine Junction on a daily basis. What is the purpose of that car, and what information are they expected to feed back to you?
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the member for that question. That officer that is there serves multiple purposes. First of all, it ensures that the bus or buses complete the route. It also gathers statistics on load factors so that we can adequately supply the needs of the traveling public going to the district. It also gives the public an opportunity to interact with the public transport unit, being that our offices are in Georgetown. And it also serves us to collect, like I said, data on information that's being carried out with the buses and the times and the schedule to see how accurate we are in relation to scheduling of buses.
And how does that person fixed at the Francine Junction determine that a bus who's licensed to go to Rum Point goes to Rum Point, or a bus who's licensed to go to Chisholm Shop goes to Chisholm Shop?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. In addition to the officer at Frank Sound Junction, there is a mechanism, obviously with timing, but we do have personnel also at Cayman, which ensures that the buses do go to Cayman, and just for the record, it's every half hour.
You're saying that you have evidence that there's a bus that goes to Cayman every half hour of the day?
When the officers are there, I can say with certainty, yes.
But that's based on time. Because I'll give you, for instance, and I didn't make this up, right? I happen to be, well, this morning I noticed that they look like they're using new signs now. While I was at the junction, the first omnibus that crossed stuck up one finger. So I suppose that was his first trip. The one behind him put up 2 fingers. I couldn't wait long enough to see if the third bus was going to come to see if, but it is, because I have followed a bus that turned Frank Sound, and they get just where this Ironwood Dream supposed to be. There's a nice little road there that goes off the road with a lot of shade tree, and the man just turned in there and parked. And I guess he waited. I didn't wait with him, right? But I know he didn't come on to finish the route. So I'm assuming he just parked there until he figured, well, the time for me now to go to Cayman is expired, and he turned around, go back Frank Sound.
Miss Member for Georgetown Central, if I could, your question.
You have to find some electronic
Yes,
means, Moses, to follow these things. GPS is a little, is $25.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, the question that the opposition leader posed in respect to what is the matrix for offenses, I didn't hear the answer to, unless I'm misunderstanding. But there has to be some matrix, and unless it's just based on his opinion or feeling, and that leaves opportunity for bias to happen. So my question is there a matrix, and can we clearly state what it is?
Okay. Customs officers and the poor person knows that they won't do it for a living, problem. And you should not be able to go into that making the decision and how much foreign to drive through it. But he approving the foreign to ride bus when you're going to say it's game on that the board don't have that kind of authority.
What's your, I didn't hear what you said. You asking? Yeah, I'm trying to finish off this head before we go for lunch. If members have a lot of questions further, I'm happy to say let's take the lunch break and come back.
Mr. Chair.
So,
But this needs, my request of the minister was that this needs some serious attention, right? People in my constituents are being put out in the rain at Frank Sound. The case that went viral is not an uncommon situation that causes that problem. And here is how the omnibus people are avoiding it. I think the rules say that they're supposed to pay when they get on the bus. They don't charge the people till they put them off the bus. So if the person gets on and said, I want to go north side, he don't collect no money. He decides to turn back Borden Town. He want to charge them for Borden Town and put them on the rain.
through you, Mr. Chair, I've just spoken to the director, and I've asked him to contact Mr. Miller to have a meeting in Northside to bring some of his inspectors with him and discuss those issues. Okay? I'm going to try to give some comfort to the member from Georgetown Central. Thank him for the question. The director has explained that there are 2 issues from the standpoint of enforcement. One lies squarely with the police and the road safety issue. The other is his inspectors, which total 4, are there to look at not obeying public transport law. And when they find something that is being done wrong, out of uniform, some of the things that Mr. Miller, then they issue a citation for that. And that is, how is that? That goes to where the board is. After 3 citations, then it goes to the board. Okay.
Member for from East End, final question, I'll put the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Public Transport Board is governed by a provision under a section under the in the traffic law. And I just want to ask the minister, the fact that we have suspended issuing license permits. That's what it appears like. 47 says an application for the grant of a permit shall be made to the board in the prescribed manner and what have you. Subject to section 46.2 and subsection 4 of 47 of the board shall consider every application and may, in its discretion, either grant a permit subject to such condition, if any, as it thinks fit, or refuse to grant a permit. Let me read 46. 46.2. 46.2 says, the governor and cabinet may, after consultation with the board and the director, give directions as to the total number of omnibuses and taxis which may be registered by the director under Part 2 at any time, and the director shall supply the board with all such information from the register on the board may require for the purpose of enabling the board to limit or suspend applications for permits under this part. Has the governor in cabinet, that is cabinet, issued any such directive on limiting permits?
I tried to explain through you, Mr. Chairman, the way that it's monitored now is based on supply and demand.
Could he explain? Because that means the board can't stop. The board has no jurisdiction to utilize that. None. Unless it comes from cabinet. Unless it comes from cabinet, yes. If it's monitored by cabinet and cabinet makes a directive under 46.2, then the board has to adhere to that. Other than that, the board has no jurisdiction. They must issue it. If they comply with 47.4, which is about convictions and the likes and the likes. So if he could explain if cabinet has issued that directive.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, previous to this cabinet, the number was 250, which I'm assuming was a number that was a cabinet directive. Okay? Because of the growth in the tourism rooms, the board was given the directive to open up above 250 and look at it based on applications, and that's how they've been granting the new licenses now. Part of the new license includes a business plan as a criteria. That business plan is extremely important from the standpoint of, do you have contracts? Do you show demand? Are you going to be the supply to demand that's already there? And trying to balance this industry with the growth of more people arriving to make sure not that you meet the demand when the least amount are on island, but that you can meet demand when you're at peak season. So I hope that puts a little bit of light on it.
It helps a little bit, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Minister, but could you draw my attention to where it said needs a business plan? Because I don't see it.
It's a condition that the board has stipulated under the category of tour operators.
Mr. Chairman, this is not even the statutory board. It cannot make its own rules. They are creatures of statute. And as such, the only thing they can consider is what is in the statute, and there is nothing saying business plan.
I'm going to put the matter to a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I've been waiting patiently to ask a question from my constituents, and it won't take very long, if you'd allow me. Are there any established bus routes going into Newlands? And when I say going into Newlands, I mean coming down the east-west arterial, turning left and going right down into Newlands, the heart of Newlands, down to the through Racklin and so on.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I'm pleased to say that over the period of a year, there have been several public transport permits issued for persons to travel along the what was known as the East-West Arterial. I think it's now the Rex-Crichton Highway. The bus routes traditionally accompany the main arterial roads, and it's not a point-to-point service, so it does not go down into the complete area of the constitution of Newlands, but it does traverse the East-West Arterial and makes a right turn on Hearst Roads to the main Shamrock Road at Savannah.
Because my understanding is that if a passenger coming on that route wants to be dropped off in Newlands, especially in the morning, especially when it's raining, I think that's those mornings and evenings are the peak times, because I think a lot of families in there have helpers who show up in the morning, and what they have to do is drive out and pick them up, especially when it's raining. They have kids that they're getting ready for school, so there's a need, there's a demand for it. I understand that if you ask a bus driver to take you in, then you pay extra. Could you look at establishing a route and not one that incurs extra costs for the passenger? Because I think there's enough demand there to justify it. I've had countless people tell me that it would really be something that they would welcome if you had a schedule running in and out of Newlands, and I don't mean just where the bypass into Sexhurst Road, but all the way in. Could you maybe commit to looking at that and providing us with a solution? It doesn't have to be all day, but peak hours, I think it would be very important, especially people going to ICCI and so on as well.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I would be glad to look at that, and I'm more than happy to meet with the member and and work on a solution with him in that regard.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor of DAT 14, Public Transport Services, for $774,552 in 2018 and $791,199 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. Ladies, members of the committee, we are at a convenient point now to take the lunch break, much later than I thought, but it is now 18 minutes after 1. Let's return by 2:15 to recommence. So we'll take a lunch break at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank Mr. Derek Banks for being here with us. And he's going to be released now. With your permission, he has nothing else. And I believe Mr. John Tibbetts had a capital project I think he's staying for. So thank you.